Hello everyone. So today we have a matchup between Senator Kamala Harris of the state of California and President Donald Trump for the 2020 presidential election. So I already filled in the safe Democratic states and the safe Republican states in my view. I don't believe that Kamala Harris is going to really outperform Hillary Clinton in a lot of in the mountain states or in states like Missouri and Indiana that a potential Joe Biden or Sanders candidacy could, because I don't think she has the appeal to independent voters, to rural voters, and I don't think she has shored up the progressive base yet. So I think those are big disadvantages to a Harris candidacy that we can talk through later. So some states I want to go through first is Colorado and New Hampshire. I'm going to say they would be competitive. I think Trump's going to try to campaign there, but I think Harris is going to win. Donald Trump has an approval rating underwater by 15 points in Colorado and New Hampshire, and that's similar approval rating to Democratic states like New Jersey. So I don't really see Donald Trump winning those states. Those are Hillary Clinton states from 2016, despite them being close. Colorado with a lot of minority voters, and in New Hampshire, Trump called them a drug-infested den. So that comment will, I think Harris is going to have a lot of ads there in New Hampshire that will probably give her the state. Virginia, likely it's trending Democratic. It's likely to be a blue state further on in the future. Harris with the growing Northern Virginia suburbs, I think she's going to hold it from 2016. All right, so when we go into some more competitive electoral votes, Maine's 2nd congressional district, I'm going to give to Donald Trump because it's a rural district. I don't really see Kamala Harris really appealing in this area. I see Donald Trump won it by 9 points, a big margin in 2016. I feel that he's going to hold it in 2020. If we go down to Iowa, I think Iowa is going to go for Donald Trump. The reason why is he won it big by 9 points in 2016, and in order to win Iowa, Kamala Harris has to really shore up her base. However, the progressive base in the Democratic Party does not trust Kamala Harris, mainly because a lot of Clinton donors want to back her. She didn't prosecute One West Bank in California when she was Attorney General, which is Steve Mnuchin's bank. So that has caused mistrust among the progressive base. But you really need to secure white working class progressive voters in the Rust Belt area in order to win it, and Kamala Harris lacks in that sense. There's not a lot of minority voters here. So Iowa, I see going for Donald Trump. However, the opposite, there's a lot of minority voters in Nevada, and I see that voting for Kamala Harris. It's near California. Growing Hispanic population. Hillary Clinton won in 2016. I see Kamala Harris winning it. Now the following. I see Georgia and North Carolina going for Donald Trump. The reason why I see these going for Donald Trump, I think Kamala Harris could be competitive. She has a chance to win it, but because she is half African American, she could probably boost turnout in the region. But if you look at Donald Trump's approval rating in these states, he's +2 in North Carolina, +7 in Georgia. So Georgia is probably out of reach. North Carolina is going to be tight, but in order to win North Carolina, not only do you have to appeal to the minority voters, just get them out, but also close the gap a little bit on the white vote. And I don't really see Kamala Harris doing that in North Carolina, and especially not in Georgia. I see Florida voting for Donald Trump, mainly because his approval rating is surprisingly high here. It's +5 in Florida. And I think Donald Trump's going to win it because there's a trend in Florida. Yes, it's a battleground, but when in doubt, they vote for the incumbent. Like in 2004, they voted for Bush. 2012, they voted for Barack Obama. And 1996, they voted for Bill Clinton. So I see Donald Trump, even despite the Parkland shooting and growing Hispanic population. The Hispanic population in Florida is a little bit more conservative than the rest of the nation. I don't really see Kamala Harris bringing out those conservative voters, those Hispanic voters in the state that Donald Trump will carry it. So in Ohio, I also feel that Donald Trump is going to carry the state. She, again, I've been repeating, white working class voters. She needs to carry. She hasn't showed up her progressive base, so Ohio is going to be difficult for her to win. Donald Trump won the state by more than 9 points. However, this will be more closer and competitive than Iowa, because there is an African American population in the northeast of the state that Harris might be able to play identity politics to try to narrow the gap, but I don't really see that being enough to close that 9 point margin, and Trump will most likely win the state. Next state I'm going to give is Pennsylvania to Donald Trump. This is a big call. The reason why is, compared to the rest of the Rust Belt, Trump has a higher approval rating here, a -5 compared to a -11 and a -9 in Michigan. So I see Pennsylvania going for Donald Trump mainly because I feel like a California senator is not really going to appeal to the rural Pennsylvania voters. Trump's going to keep his margin within the rural regions. Also because he passed tariffs here to protect, he could argue that it's protecting the steel industry in Pennsylvania. So I think Donald Trump is going to win Pennsylvania because he's going to keep those margins in the rural areas. And I don't really see Kamala Harris really making too many inroads in the suburbs in eastern Pennsylvania and getting really a lot of turnout in Philadelphia. I could possibly see this voting for Kamala Harris. But I feel like Kamala Harris is also going to try to play a lot to identity politics. So she's going to be going to Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and Arizona a lot. So I feel like she's not going to put in all the resources that she could in Pennsylvania. And I feel that Donald Trump is going to campaign a lot in Pennsylvania because he knows he has to keep the Rust Belt in order to win the presidency. Michigan, on the other hand, I think is going to vote for Kamala Harris, mainly because there is a pretty significant African American population in Flint, Michigan, in Detroit that would flip the state for her. It was the smallest margin for Donald Trump in the Rust Belt, 0.3%. I think that just a slight uptick in the African American population could flip the state of Michigan towards Kamala Harris. Now, the state of Arizona and the state of Wisconsin, I believe, are truly toss-ups. I think they could go either way. However, I'm going to give them both to Donald Trump. The reason why I think Arizona is going to be extremely competitive is that it voted a smaller margin than North Carolina did in 2016. It's close to California. Kamala Harris is in that region. She could win the state. Also, the Hispanic voters, with a lot of controversy with recently the separation of families at the border, could potentially make Kamala Harris win the state. However, I think Trump is going to shore up his base in Arizona because he pardoned Joe Arpaio, which is sheriff in Arizona. So I think he's going to get his base out, and it's still there's a approval rating in Arizona is +2, so I think he'll be able to carry it. In Wisconsin, but really the reason why is, I don't think that Kamala Harris hasn't showed up the progressive base. There's unions here. I don't think they're going to support Kamala Harris. However, there is an African American population around Milwaukee, but their turnout dropped by almost nearly 20% in 2016. A lot has to do with that with ID laws, so I think Donald Trump is going to narrowly carry the state. It was also his largest margin in the Rust Belt states, excluding Ohio and Iowa. So that's why I think he's going to win the state. So then Donald Trump wins the presidency, 290 electoral votes to 248 for Kamala Harris. The reason is, only state that really Kamala Harris can flip is maybe Michigan, because she can play to identity politics and get minority turnout out. I think Kamala Harris does have the potential to win if she chooses a progressive vice presidential candidate, such as maybe Elizabeth Warren or Tulsi Gabbard. I think she could be able to flip Wisconsin, maybe able to flip Pennsylvania. Arizona, if Donald Trump's approval rating declines a little bit, depending on how the immigration issue comes out, I think Kamala Harris could win Arizona. Maybe Florida. It depends, but Florida is always a perennial battleground. But Kamala Harris has potential, but she doesn't have the name recognition right now. She doesn't have support among her base, and she is not going to be able to turn out white working class voters as much as a candidate like Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders would. So yeah, that's my prediction. 290 for Donald Trump, and he likely to win re-election.